Pulsex buy and burn function is actually going to create selling pressure automatically for Pulse and automatically for Hex. And you're like, what is this crazy fucker talking about? Well, I actually talked about it in this video. You can go check the channel, click on the icon, then search the channel for this constant selling pressure, and it will come up. And then I was watching this live stream, which we're going to actually cover in a moment here. And in this video, Richard actually talks about what I talked about in here and how it's actually going to perform constant selling pressure on Pulsex and Hex. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to get into this awesome example, so I get to show you some of the nuances of it, which we dove in very deep in this video. So if you want to check it out, you can go check out that. But first, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Now, if you are returning, I don't know why you haven't already subscribed and pressed the like button. Come on, bro. It is your second time here or more, by the way. I appreciate you. Anybody who does find value in any of these videos, too, take a second, share this video on Twitter or tag or follow me on Twitter. Happy to interact, and I get to learn things from you guys about these cool things, so I love it. I appreciate you. Now, let's get into the video here, because there's going to be a lot of people that go through like this, like, I want to call it FUD or like fear, right? Because they're like, oh my God, somebody on the internet is talking shit about Pulsechain. Oh my God, let me get my panties up in a fucking bunch, right? Because they're so scared that somebody's talking shit about their like their fucking baby. Well, you got to educate yourself, and you got to understand what is actually going on. Is this to say that Pulse is not going to do well? No, that's not what I'm saying. Is this to say that Hex is not going to do well, right? No, not at all. This is just some of the nuance here that we're going to actually talk about. So let's start with this clip from Richard. Now, I'm going to play this. I think it's about a minute long, where he actually talks about
Pulsex tokens are burned. Whose tokens exactly are getting burned? It's a great question. It's a great question. So the Fee2 address in the Uniswap v2 code, which is forked to create the Pulsex contracts, scrapes a percentage of fees, 21.7% of fees. And those fees, when you do a swap, are paid in the form of the token that you're getting rid of. So if you were to swap, say, Pulse for Hex, then the contract would scrape some of the Pulse. And if you were to swap Hex for Pulse, it would scrape some of the Hex. Then when someone adds or removes liquidity to that Hex Pulse pair, as part of their add or remove function, that person pays to send the scraped tokens to the Fee2 address. And so the Fee2 address acquires over time, as people add and remove liquidity from the LP, 21.7% of the fees, and the fees are whichever pair was gotten rid of to get the other side of the pair. And so the tokens that are being burnt, and so what happens is now anyone can run a contract which then uses those scraped Fee2 address paid fee percentages, and then buys Pulsex with those so the inputs are the scraped fees from those other coins, and then it trades them for Pulsex, and then those Pulsex are burnt. So the same thing that allows them to do the trade also burns them.
So, pretty fascinating stuff, right? When you think about what's happening in this video, you have a buy and burn function with Pulsex, which works like there is going to be 0.29% fee, right? So in the example you talked about between Pulse and Pulsex, you have Hex and Pulse and somebody's taking their pulse to trade it for hex. When somebody does that, they're paying a fee to the LPs, right? The fee to the system. The fee to the system is 0.29%. Of that 0.29%, 76% roughly is going to the LPs. Right? So they're going to be earning fee revenue. I think it's about 2.3% is going to be going to, RH. And then 21.7% of the 0.29 fee is going to be going into this separate address for buy and burn. In the same example, right, going in the reverse direction, hex to pulse. If somebody trades their hex for pulse, they pay hex as the fee. So when you think about this, hex is going to be part of the fee that is going to be sent to this address for buy and burn. Pulse is going to be part of the fee that is sent to this address for buy and burn. What was the next thing that he said? People can run a contract to run this function of the accumulated fees, right? When somebody adds or removes liquidity, they basically are paying that accumulation of fees to be put at this address for buy and burn. Then you can run a contract to actually get that to execute, and that's going to take those fees and route them to PLSX, right? So if there's fees in USDC or some other PRC, it will sell that and transfer that or swap that into something else, whether it's a direct swap or multiple step sequence to get over to Pulsex. A portion of those fees is going to be Pulse. A portion of those fees is going to be Hex. So what does that mean? When this function is activated, for somebody paying to activate it or however that process is going to work, this is going to cause the selling of Pulse to be able to swap into Hex. This is going to cause the selling of Hex to swap into Pulsex. When you take a look at these, the numbers are fascinating. Because if you look at one example here, we have an absolute number for a fee versus a percentage of the amount, right? So say in this case, fees are on Pulse mainnet are going to be a fraction of a penny. So we have 10% of a penny here, right? 0.001. 25% of that is going to be burned. Not bought and burned, just burned, right? Because the fee is already paid in Pulse, so they're just going to burn 25% of it. So if there's $1 million worth, right? There's a fee of this. 25% of that is burnt. So that means the total amount that is going to be burnt of Pulse is 0.00. It's actually 25, I believe. If we drop this down, I think it's 25. Yes, right. 0.00025. Very small amount. That same transaction, right? Because this is going to be, both of these fees are going to be paid when you do a transaction on Pulsex, right? You're going to pay the main net fee, and then you're going to pay the Pulsex fee, just like you would on Uniswap, right? You're going to pay Uniswap, and you're also going to pay Ethereum. If another $1 million, the same exact transaction, right? You just paid a fraction of a penny for the Pulse mainnet fee, you're going to also pay $2,900 fee to Pulsex. 76% of that roughly is going to be going to LPs. 3% roughly is going to be going to the origin, right, address. And 21.7% of that is going to be going to buy and burn. If you do the math on that, that is $609. So for every $1 million transaction, you're going to have $609 that goes to buy and burn. Now, let's make some assumptions here, right? Because you always have to highlight the assumptions, because that's where people can introduce flaws, right? Let's assume, well, let's put this into context. There's probably going to be a decently high number of pairs between Pulse and other POC20s, which means the total number of pairs on Pulsex, there's probably going to be a decently high number of pairs between Pulse and some other token, because it's just the base layer. If of the 609, right, because the fees are going to be earned in both directions, right, whether it's like something like liquid loans, right, and somebody's trading USDL for something, right, then the fees can be paid in USDL. If it's some other protocol, then it's going to be paid in that, right? Well, this, let's just assume that, say, 10% of the fees earned are in Pulse. That means on $1 million transaction, and this is the assumption part, 10%. Do we think that this 10% is actually 50%, right? Or do we think that is maybe 5%? Right? You can do the numbers either way, right? Yeah, even if 5% is still ridiculous, but let's just say it's 10%. 10% of $600 for every $1 million worth in fees goes towards selling the price down of Pulse. And in that same deal, to offset that, is 0.0025 burn of Pulse. So you have this gigantic selling down. But if you actually take a look at this, right? So let's take $60 divided by, I'm sorry, the other way around. $60 divided by the fee that is burned. You have a 243,000x difference in the magnitude of the effect on Pulse. What does that mean? That means there's $61 that is sold of Pulse, and there's 0.0025 cents burned, right, to offset the selling. That's a lot. The same thing happens with HEX, right? You could go through and change this to, well, it's not going to be paid a fee, right, in HEX, but say that there is 1% of fees that are earned in HEX, right? Let's say it's half of 1%, right? Because we'll assume that it's going to be a really small amount. Well, that means for every $1 million worth of fees, if 1% of those fees is earned in HEX, then that's going to create $3 of selling pressure on HEX. And if you believe that Pulsex and Pulsechain and HEX are going to be successful, then if you think Pulsex has any chance of getting to, say, PancakeSwap, $400 million worth of transactions per day, roughly, SushiSwap, $800–900 million of transactions a day, Uniswap, 1.2, 1.3 billion dollars of transaction volume a day. These numbers get fucking big, right? This is $1 million. Let's say Pulsex gets to $100 million of fees earned in a day, right? Then, or the value that's going to go basically exchange through the system. So then, actually, I did update this over here, but let's go like this. This is $100 million, assuming that only 0.005, which is 0.5% of the fees are earned in HEX, right? We'll assume that there's 26 pairs of HEX with something else, right? And because you're going to have, by the way, if you like this type of content and you like this type of detail, I have some fucking gold dropping. So you got 4 different types of HEX, right? You're like, wait, we're going to have P-HEX and we're going to have E-HEX. How does CC4? Well, if you want to catch that video when it comes out, make sure you press the subscribe button and the bell notification, because there's actually 4 different types of HEX. When you utilize the bridge, and there's going to be people who do that for various reasons. What is going to happen with PLSX staking and ETH staking, ETH HEX staking. Got a whole video coming out on that, right? Because you're going to effectively have a copy of something, so they can grow at different rates, they can change. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. And then I want to, there would be a shorter video on how, like, a bridged asset, why the bridged assets hold the value up of something. So we're going to dive into that. Also, the adoption. So this is some macro level data that I'm going to cover on why we are so incredibly early to this game in terms of crypto, using some very macro level data to show you we are barely at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what is about to happen. So if you're watching this, pat yourself on the back, because the ride is going to be fucking explosive. But let's get back into this. If 10% of the fees are Pulse, then there's, for this, right, this could be broken up into, say, a ton of different transactions, right? But that creates over $6,000 of the selling pressure on Pulse. So the thing that offsets this, right, is going to be the adoption. If people are acquiring Pulse at a faster rate than it be sold down, which I think will definitely happen, right? But when you consider like Pulsex versus Pulse and what could potentially happen, right? Because this is conjecture. When I take a look at these, I am more bullish on Pulsex, as this could be the first time when a layer 1 has been eclipsed by something that was built on top of it. This is also, to add credence to this and credibility to this, this is also, from my understanding, the first time where you've had something where it has been synergistically vertically integrated, right? Ethereum doesn't have a Pulsex for it that was built by Ethereum. Bitcoin doesn't have that, right? And Binance doesn't have that. They were built up, maybe there's cross-pollination of the developers in the process, and I'm sure there is with the information, and some type of collaboration I would expect to take place, but they're still separate. And when you have that, you're unable to reap all the potential benefits of it. When you put two things together in a synergistic way, look at Tesla, they're just mopping the fucking floor with the other OEMs. This could be the first time where layer 2, something built on top of Pulsechain or any of the others, eclipses value, then eclipses the value of what was actually underneath it. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are down below in the comment section, or hit me up on Twitter. I would love to hear from you over there. And if you want to catch those topics we were just talking about a moment ago, make sure you press the subscribe button and the bell notification. If you want to see this from another angle over here, right, you can check out this by searching constant selling pressure and check out that video, right? Because this is going to create constant selling pressure for Pulse and HEX, right? It's just what it is, right? It's also going to create selling pressure for EHEX. It's going to create selling pressure for wrapped wrapped EHEX, right? Or whatever you want to call it, right? So this is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. One of the awesome benefits of having a YouTube channel and like putting out content is that I get to learn from you guys when you guys comment down below, or hey, did you think about this, or hey, you missed this kind of thing, and I get to see what those things are, right, and learn from you guys. So please feel free to leave those comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. Take a second, share this video with somebody else. I don't see anybody else talking about this stuff, but it's real fucking shit. Like, why is somebody else talking about it? You can share this video. It's at the start, I think, is at 53 minutes and 41 seconds. So appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. By the way, I want to get my Twitter following up, so check out my Twitter and Instagram, and my other YouTube channel. Video will be up here now, I think, so you can check out